daunting.
So you told me.
What did I tell you?
We're not writing the paper here.
Oh, right. There is no way that I can give a discussion of Gaudium et Spes, which is the document that I'm going to be talking about, which means joy and hope. Most often well, not just the documents of Vatican II, but when encyclicals come out as well, they generally take the first couple of words of the document that, as they are written in Latin, as the title that they're often referred to. So that's where that comes from. So what I'll say is that, let me give you a little bit of background on the document itself, just some things that I thought were interesting, and then we'll talk about the meat of it. No pun intended. So as I told you, there are 16 primary documents that came out of Vatican II. 4 of them are called constitutions, which means they are the 4 most important of the documents because of what they teach. And Gaudium et Spes particularly is the only one that has the word pastoral in its title. And I'm going to define that because we have some bad notions of what we think pastoral means. Just having a conversation with one of the gentlemen that comes to Joe Catholic on a regular basis when we're talking about the degree that Mark and I are pursuing is called a Master's of Theological Studies in Pastoral Theology. And he's like, well, I don't know what I would do with a pastoral theology degree. There's this notion that just means doing outreach and that sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I guess there's a sense that there's not a scholarly or practical.
It's not an MBA.
Yeah.
Get a job.
So
it's like a bachelor in English, right?
Thank you very much. That's why I went and got my MBA, so I can make some money.
Because I once shared that idea too. I almost didn't sign up for these classes because of the whole language of pastoral. So I hope to do away with that notion as well. So I'm going to start off with, I organized this talk in 3 different parts, so it may seem a little disjointed. So if I am, I apologize in advance, but there was so much I was trying to get to you, and so I'm praying that as I get through this, I'll just, it'll become more clear and focused. But the first thing I wanted to say is that of all the documents that were written, Vatican II lasted how many years? So we're in the 50th anniversary right now, so 3 years, about 3 years. It started in November of 1962, and Gaudium et Spes was published in December of 1965. Okay? It's the last of the documents that was written, and it's the only one that wasn't pre-written. That is to say that there wasn't already an outline being worked on it prior to the council being started, when the planning was going into it, so to speak. It came from the floor, from the discussions that were taking place during Vatican II. It kind of grew out of that there was a need for this pastoral constitution. It's also the longest of the documents. It's nearly 70 pages long. Okay.
Can you write the title on the cardboard?
Joy and hope was pretty easy.
Yeah, but that's not the way you're going to find it.
Oh.
Can I just interject while you're writing that?
Yes, sir.
There is an app. There's an app that has them all. It's itself is, it's called Laudate, Laudate. Has all kinds of prayers as a whole. It has the catechism, it has the Bible, it has everything in it, but it also has all of the writings of the Second Vatican.
What's the literal translation, Don?
Of this?
Of this?
Joy and hope.
Join.
So, remember when I told you that it's generally the first couple of lines? This translation, by the way, if you want to read the documents old school, and there are actually what post-conciliar documents that were written shortly after the council as well, that were in support of the other documents or in explanation of them. Many of these are in here in addition to the 16 basic ones. You can find this at any Catholic bookstore. Oftentimes you can find these at half-price books. Never been read. That's where I got this one.
They were well-intentioned.
But it's a good way to read them, and if you're one of these readers that likes to take notes, that's one of the things, that's one of my, y'all know me, I like technology, but one of my criticisms of doing this on an iPad or whatever is the difficulty in making annotations unless you've got a good app for that, which I have finally found. But, these documents were meant to be read and for you to make notes to yourself about. And so I highly recommend this. This book's about $20. Okay, and then there's another version that you can order. You want to show them the one that you have? Now this one's out of print, and it's actually, the introductions are written by the professor that we studied the Vatican II documents from, Douglas Bushman. You can order that on Amazon. From time to time, copies of it become available. But just to highlight the point of how the title came about, the very first line out of this document is, "The joys and hopes. The grief and anguish of the people of our time, especially those who are poor or afflicted, are the joys and hopes, the grief and the anguish of the followers of Christ as well." That's where the title comes from, straight out of the first line. Okay? I'll pass this around so that y'all can see it if you've not ever. All right, so last written from the floor. Longest, also it's the only one that had subtitles into it. It's so long that sometimes when you'll see scholarly articles written, you'll see that it's got subheadings, and so it was easier for you to be able to follow. So it's the only document that did as well. And so that so you have an idea of what I mean when I say the word constitution, I should define my terms. Constitution in this sense means a document that engages the council's teaching authority most fully. So that's to demonstrate the authoritative value of that particular document. So it's get your attention, this is serious stuff.
It's like a mandate. A mandate to learn is I guess, the way I would put it. So, in prefacing this discussion, there are 3 points I wanted to bring out about Vatican II in general. And we'll go back and revisit this as we visit some of the other documents, about some of the challenges of reading these documents or talking about these documents. Cardinal Henri de Lubac said that his experience that there were many people who had referred to the council, but few who actually read it. We talked about that. You'll hear a lot of people tossing about ideas that they have about Vatican II in the documents, but they've never read the documents. It's like talking about the Constitution of the United States and never having read it. For example, challenge somebody to find a right to privacy in the Constitution. It doesn't exist. Okay? Moreover, the council, so here's another point. The way the council should be viewed, the Vatican II should be viewed, is in the continuity and the great tradition of the church. In totality of all of the teachings of the church. The same way that we read the Bible. We don't just take one scripture verse out of the Bible and interpret it. You know, the church looks at Scripture in the totality of the entire salvation history story. His story. Because the point is that the church is the one and the same throughout all of the councils, whether it's the first council of Jerusalem or this last council of Vatican II. And history has always demonstrated that it's taken a while for people to get what the council meant. You know, the reality of it is, yeah, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary, but we're still very close to the events of the time. You know, time hasn't really gone by. And this is what Pope Benedict said about Vatican II, and I'm going to quote him here. He says, "And thus it seems to me that we must rediscover the great heritage of the council, which is not a spirit reconstructed behind the text, but the great conciliar texts themselves must be reread today with the experiences that we have had and that have borne fruit in so many movements and in so many new religious communities." And so this was his declaration. This was I pulled this out of something that he had written and was talking about how we need to go back and reread that. I think that's good as we go into this year of faith. All right, so what I wanted to do is cover some of the key points of Gaudium et Spes, because I'm not going to be able to go over the whole thing and tell you all of the aspects of it. The first thing that I would say is that Gaudium et Spes' primary mission was to demonstrate the relationship of the church with the world, and vice versa. Like, what is the role of the church? And that means church with a capital C, and it also means church with a little c. And if, you know, and really that doesn't even really matter, because what is the church? Us. The role that we have in the church. And one of the main points that comes out of it, and this is for those of you that are taking notes, one of the main points is point number 41 of Gaudium et Spes that says, it talks about a unity of truth. Or what John Paul II said in his encyclical called Faith and Reason. He described faith and reason as the two wings of truth. That they go hand in hand. That a natural pursuit of reason, philosophy, the questions of life, will lead you to God. But we live in a time where I would call Pontius Pilate the anti-patron saint of truth. When he asked Jesus, "Qui est veritas?" What is truth? And you know what? We're living in an era of what is truth. What is truth to you, Rick? Well, whatever it is to you, that's all right, brother. What feels good, whatever, you know, floats your boat. Or it's all good. You know? You've heard these terms, okay? It's a society that we live in. You know, and it has seeped into the brains of our children. I teach high school kids, and they have bought into this. It's so seeped into the way that they've been raised that you can't have conversations about them, about there being absolute truths. Everything is questionable. Heck, some of them don't even really believe that 2 + 2 = 4.